Fantasy football week 2 is here, and I'm going to get you fully prepared, going through each position, giving you all the optimal starts based on matchup at each position, and also the guys that have it in tough, walking you through, making sure you're prepared. Now, this is just not any old video. If you guys want direct access to me, patreon.com/FFcounselor, that's guaranteed, but drop a question below, okay? If you guys drop a question below, I'll try to get to as many people as I possibly can to help you with your starts and sits. No guarantee, but I'm telling you guys, dive in, help each other a little bit in the comments as well. Make it ultra interactive in the comments and hit the thumbs up. Smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up. I want to make sure you guys are 100% gonna win this year, okay? And in order to do that, you gotta hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you guys are glued to this channel so you don't miss anything. That's very, very important. So drop a question, hit the thumbs up, and we're gonna get to this video. We're also gonna talk about the latest news and notes as well with Breaking Brad here. And I'm telling you, man, there's a couple things that I wanna highlight and discuss going into week 2 based on injuries and stuff like that. There's a lot to cover here on the show. So we're gonna start with latest news and notes, go through each position, okay? I'm excited to dive in. Now, again, I'm an independent, okay? Now, how do I make a living? I team up with the right partners. The right partners help support the channel, okay? So for me to get paid and actually put food on my table, I got to team up with the right people. And I did this year. I got the chubbysshorts.com/lion mode. Go over there right now, guys. They got some amazing swag. They sent me this amazing shirt. Now you get to pick your own t-shirt here. This is great for the beach, great for barbecuing, great for at home watching the games, great for fantasy drafts. Amazing. The material is really nice. It's made out of good quality. Look at this. I can pull it here, nice and strong. Golf shirt, whatever it is. The place you want to go is chubbysshorts.com/lion mode or chubbysshorts.com, and then lion mode will save you $10 on your order upon checkout. Order your favorite team. The reason I got Broncos, I'm kind of embarrassed to say it after week 1, is I got a lot of Bo Nix stock. Now, that being said, he's a backup in my leagues, okay? I got Josh Allen starting. In a couple leagues, I think I'm in 9 leagues. 2 of them, he's the main starter, okay? And I had a bad week last week. He's going to bounce back, so I'm not really concerned about Bo Nix. I think he'll be fine. But guys, go get your shirt. Favorite team, chubbysshorts.com/lion mode, or go to their site, chubbys.com, and upon checkout, use code lion mode. You're going to save $10 on your order. Go check them out, man. They got a lot of cool stuff, not just shirts, shorts, swag, everything you guys need to get dressed up and looking fresh at chubbys.com. Okay, lion mode's the code. All right, so let's dive into it here with the latest news with you know who it is. You guys know who it is at this point. If you don't, if you're new to the channel, subscribe so you get to get more out of him. It's Breaking Brad. Where are you, Breaking Brad?
We now have breaking news.
Where are you? Where are you? You got one more line. Breaking Brad, where is it? Hold on, it's coming.
It is with great urgency that we bring you these following messages.
That's why we pay him the big bucks, Breaking Brad. Okay, here we go. A couple of things I want to highlight here in the latest news and notes. And I mentioned a couple of them in yesterday's show. Worth mentioning, all right? Now, the main thing, a lot of people are concerned about George Kittle. And I understand. Like I told you, get Tyler Warren. That's my guy. So I'm not really concerned for me from a fantasy perspective, but a lot of people are because you invest 2nd, 3rd round, 4th round, wherever he fell to you. Draft capital, I think he was more like a 2nd or 3rd round guy. George Kittle, and now he's dealing with a hamstring. He's going to be placed on IR. Okay, that 4 weeks minimum, and that's 4 weeks minimum. So assuming he comes back and you know those hamstrings, they linger, he could be in a lot of trouble. Not good. Now, also Brock Bowers, a guy that I told you to fade, not because of talent. I just think it's a whole new situation. That being said, he was doing good. Got hit at the sideline, had a bit of a sprain in the knee. I think he should be good to go for week 2. A little concerning for Brock Bowers fans for sure, okay? Something to note here. Now, people were concerned about Christian McCaffrey, and I'm not a big fan. I think he's eventually going to go down. But apparently, he made it through week 1. Okay, against Seattle, no setbacks, which was good. Played 76% of offensive snaps as opposed to 85% of snaps in week 1 in game 2023. So this is something to note if you're a CMC owner. 85% of the snaps in week 1 of 2023. And then last year, I don't know, I'm just looking at the stat, just kind of came up, 70% of offensive snaps last week. Just to note, okay? Anyway, that's the news on him. Also, Mac Jones, San Francisco 49ers QB, might get the start in week 2. Note this, there's a lot of Brocks going on here. Okay, listen to this. Brock Bowers is dealing with a shoulder toe thing. If he cannot go, They might bring in Mac Jones. He might get the start of week 2 against the Saints. That's Brock Bowers. Hopefully he's okay. Another interesting note here as we're talking news, I want to highlight this. Again, I've got no Kenneth Walker stock. If you guys don't remember the story, I'm going to share you guys a story time with the cat. We need a story time type song here. Do we have a story time song? We don't really here. Is that all we got? A story time? We need like an actual story. Anyway, I want to share a story. So Kenneth Walker's rookie year, I had him drafted, and then he was doing pretty good. And then he had this injury where he went by the sideline and I don't know, it was a non-contact thing. He tweaked something. I think it was an ankle or hamstring or something, I don't know what it was, okay? So Walker goes to the sideline. So I go on social media and call him a wimp. I told him to man up and get back on the field. That was pathetic. Nobody touched him, right? And he blocks me. So I bit off the Kenneth Walker train. Ever since I bit off the Kenneth Walker train, Kenneth Walker hasn't been that great. Like, he's okay. He's not that good. So anyway, that was a story time with the counselor. But here's the news here. Zach Charbonnet led the backfield in week 1 against the 49ers, totaling 30 of 52 offensive snaps, while Mr. Kenneth Walker played 21 snaps. That's 30 for Zach Charbonnet, 21 for Walker. And maybe you're saying, well, he's a little banged up. He's kind of getting in the group, whatever. Okay. So it's saying we're not tallying reps as the game goes on, McDonald said Tuesday, September 9th, but a lot is based on how the game is going and what plays guys run better and things like that. That's what they're saying. But man, like Kenneth Walker, people, I told you, man, like I don't trust that guy. I just don't trust that guy at all. Okay. Also, a couple other things. Well, the main thing I want to talk about, not the main thing, but one thing that really jumped out at me, I did a post on specific. I actually went out and did a post on social yesterday on this because it blows my mind here. Christian Watson, who's dealing with a knee injury, and I think he's going to be out till October, maybe even more, signed a 1-year deal. Now, this is the thing, right? Like, I talked about this. If you're like, let's say wherever you work, I don't know where you work. Maybe you work on a construction site. Maybe you work at McDonald's, or maybe you work in a law firm, or maybe you work, I don't know what you do. Whatever you do, maybe you're a sales rep somewhere, right? Maybe you're a realtor. And then sometimes, like, I remember I was an outside sales rep, and like I was, I always did what I had to do, but sometimes I'd take an extended 10-minute break here and there, whatever, like an extra lunch or whatever. I was out with my customers. I kind of felt bad, I'm like, oh my God, an extra 10-minute break here and there, it's kind of, well, look at this. Christian Watson, right? This is time theft here. Signs a 1-year deal, $13.25 million contract extension. Imagine not doing anything and getting paid $13.25 million. Kind of like the Jameson Williams deal in Detroit. Like, what has he done? And he gets paid. He's like the 13th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. That is ludicrous, man. There is like small villages and towns and across the United States, even in the world. You can feed a lot of people. $13 million, that's a lot of homeless people or people in need. You could feed people. You can make a difference. You could put it to your local charity, maybe towards research for cancer or something like that. But you definitely don't pay a guy that has done nothing. Like, he's on IR right now. The fact that you're paying him and he's on IR right now is absolutely mind-blowing. I just had to share that. I wanted to get that out of my system. I don't understand it. It makes zero logical sense. And you can say, well, Joe, it's depth piece. He's there. If they need a receiver, come stretch time. If they make the playoffs, Watson's going to be there. He could be a good red zone target. He put up some decent stats. I don't care. I'm not paying a guy on IR. I'm just not doing it. Who's always on IR for that matter. Okay, I had to share that, get that out. But that's it. Okay, and there's going to be more news coming up. So that's why I turn on the bell, subscribe. We'll get to more of that. Thank you, Breaking Bad. We're out for today with On the News.
We now have breaking news.
All right, let's go through the optimal players at each position here. I'm going to pull it up here. Now, I talk about this a lot in my shows. I talk about, like, if you got a starter, start him. Example, Keon Coleman had a good week, put up 29 points. Are you starting Keon Coleman? Absolutely. He's the wide receiver 1. This is what I've been screaming. Now, some guys, we're going to kind of go through the list here, start a quarterback, go through, and we'll even give you some defense at the end. Some guys may be a 1-week wonder. They just had a big game. Quentin Johnson, for example, probably a big game, right? Like 2 touchdowns. They got Keenan Allen there. They got other receivers. They got Ladd, who had a mediocre week last week. Omarion didn't really get going with the running game. Maybe it was an anomaly week and he's going to decline. There's going to be variances here. And remember last year, I think it was last year, the year before, Isaiah likely had that 1 week. Everyone picked him up, waiver wire, did nothing. We're going to find out. We're going to separate the men from the boys in week 2 because Keyshawn Booty, right? Okay, the Patriots was a top target getter, right? Like he's kind of like the 1B. Diggs is on the decline of his year. So I really like Booty. And I put in a waiver request for him. I hope I get him for waiver wire. I put in some bids on him. I don't know if I'm going to get him, but I don't think he's going to be a 1 week wonder because I think there's nobody else there. Kyle Williams was drafted as a rookie, didn't get going. They trust Booty. Like, I don't know. They like the Booty. So we'll see how that's going to go. So let's go through this here real quick. And if you got your starters, right, the guys you invested high draft capital in, for example, Jamar Chase had a bad week last week, 4.6 points. Are you going to be benching Jamar Chase? Absolutely not. Now, I don't have any Jamar Chase, thank God. A.J. Brown, 1.8 points. Are you benching A.J. Brown? Hopefully not. Now, if they have multiple weeks like that, now you're starting to have problems. So if you, for example, have Keon Coleman, we're talking starts and sits advice here, so there's a lot going into this. If you have Keon Coleman and A.J. Brown has 2 bad weeks, you're starting Keon Coleman. If you got Booty and you got Jamar Chase, you're going to start Booty over Jamar Chase. But that being said, it's hard to sit your first overall pick unless there's a consistent amount of weeks where he absolutely craps the bed. So just monitor the guys that crap the bed that you invested high draft capital in them. No matter how good they are, if they keep crapping the bed every week, you got to sit them, okay? But let's take a look at the matchups here, and we're going to rip through it, okay? So Kyler Murray, good matchup versus Carolina. And then you want to focus on this number here on top as I'm going through this above their head. So this is where you want to focus right here, okay? Kind of who they're playing, of course, when you look at this little algorithm here, but also this number here on what they put up in fantasy points last week, okay? I think everything over 15 points is like you're getting the green, which is pretty good fantasy points, okay? So Russell Wilson here, again, 11 points, not the greatest. Joe Burrow, 8.8, bad week last week. As you can see here, guys, you can see bad week Joe Burrow. CJ Stroud, 9.7 fantasy points. Really unacceptable here for CJ Stroud. Lamar Jackson had a good week and a great matchup. The green here as well is a good matchup. Trevor Lawrence, only 11 points, but has a decent matchup versus Cincinnati. Cam Ward had a bad week last week, 3.5 fantasy points. Okay, maybe give or take round up to 4. And he, better matchup versus the Rams this weekend. Flacco, remember the Bills put up a lot of points, okay, against Baltimore last week. So I guess the algorithm is factoring that in, giving Flacco a relatively favorable matchup here, only 14 points last week. Herbert had that big week, over 30 fantasy points, playing Vegas. That's going to continue here with Vegas, who gives up some points here at the versus position, okay? Bo Nix, a little more favorable this year. I know a lot of people are like scared of Bo Nix, whatever, but you got to understand, guys, that Bo Nix, it's the first week jitters. He's going to be fine. I'm not concerned. I think he's going to bounce back this week, okay? Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts coming off a big week, mid-range matchup. The guys that have it in tough at the quarterback position, again, you got to be listening because I'm also giving golden nuggets. So yeah, take a look at the visuals, but also listen to what I'm saying, okay? Goff against Chicago, relatively hard matchup here, 11.9 points. Drake May versus Miami. Again, this is kind of like, it's still figuring out the algorithm. I think he could do well against Miami next week, but it's only 16 points last week. Jaden Daniels versus Green Bay. Now, this makes sense. Green Bay is a good defense, man. The Parsons edition, they're a good defense. Hopefully you pick them up. If you're in my Patreon group, if you're not joining my Patreon group, guys, patreon.com/FF Counselor, join the front lines, because that's where you're going to get direct access to me. Guys, you need to go to Patreon right now, okay? I'm going to put the little sign up here. Patreon.com/ that's going to give you direct access to me here. But I mean, listen, Green Bay is going to really give Jaden Daniels a run for his money, but coming off a 20-point game last week, hopefully he does well. But I'm just making you aware. This isn't like, hey man, like, don't you want to sit Jaden Daniels, but just understand it is a tougher matchup versus position, okay? Michael Penix had a good week last week versus Minnesota, tougher. Mahomes tougher. Sam Darnold, Jordan Love, tougher matchup versus position. Justin Fields versus Buffalo. Now, I understand Baltimore put up a lot of points, but on paper, based on last year, again, factoring in last year's algorithm and how Buffalo did as a defense, it still is on paper a tough matchup versus Fields. Fields coming off a 30-point game. Pretty awesome stuff. Now, Daniel Jones, this is going to be interesting. A lot of people picked him up off waiver wire. He had a great week last week, okay? 29.5 points. I love Tyler Warren. I hope this streak continues because I hope Daniel Jones has a career year because I have Tyler Warren pretty much everywhere. But it is a tougher matchup. Denver plays tough, man. They're a tough defense. It's going to be interesting to see how that falls together. We talked about Brock Purdy dealing with like a shoulder toe issue. Be careful there if you're going to start him. Spencer Rattler, here's the thing, right? Like, you better not be starting Spencer Rattler. That's all I got is 11.5 points last week. Not bad. I think I saw him running a touchdown, something like that, but who knows? And Geno Smith, relatively tough. If I don't mention him, like guys like Josh Allen here, as you can see, Caleb Williams, you better not be starting Tua. I'm telling you that. He's got a mid-range matchup. Bryce Young, crap in the bed here. Mid-range matchup versus Arizona. I don't trust these guys, okay? Some of these guys, like the Tuas, the Bryce Youngs of the world, don't do it, okay? But Josh Allen, mid-range matchup, you got to start Josh Allen. So, again, this is if you're kind of torn on, like, do I start this guy or that guy? I had Daniel Jones, like, example. Daniel Jones is a perfect example of this. Like, people are going to be excited to start him, but maybe he might get a reality check this week. Maybe Daniel Jones rises to the occasion, right? It's going to be a good test for him this week. All right, let's go through the guys that have a good matchup at the running back position. So we're going to switch over to running backs here. Okay, let's go. James Conner, good matchup. Trey Benson, we saw him get involved a little more last week, which was good. All right, so that's really good for Trey Benson, a guy that I was high on last year. I think it's going to be the fall off for Conner, but he did last week get a goal line carry, which kind of saved Conner's week. Okay, good for him, right? Like, whatever. All right, but I would consider Trey Benson as a flex play. Chase Brown, only 13.1 points last week, as you can see here, but good matchup versus Jacksonville. Very nice, okay? Tajay Brooks, nothing last week, 0. Devin Achane had a good week last week. Very interesting. Ollie Gordon was kept at bay. So it looks like we are really factoring in a Devin Achane injury, which is very viable that Ollie Gordon gets going, okay? Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, this was a very interesting scenario here last week, okay? Very annoying scenario. You guys know that you guys know that I hate the situation there with Detroit and Montgomery and Gibbs. Now, Montgomery, believe it or not, actually had more rushing attempts than Jahmyr Gibbs last week. I don't know what to tell you. I think it was 11-9. I mean, Detroit looked terrible. And could that be the new offensive coordinator, Morton, compared to Ben Johnson? Like, maybe it's an offensive coordinator thing, but the fact of the matter is it is concerning if you are a Gibbs owner. It is 100% concerning. I want to make you guys aware that Montgomery is getting more rushing attempts. That is ludicrous, especially if you invested a first-round pick in Gibbs. Now, some people are saying, well, Joe, you put Gibbs as a 16-rounder. Yes, but if you look at my mock drafts, I was focused more on other players, right? And I could be wrong. I got more Genti stock, but Genti doesn't have as much competition. Worse O-line, possibly, maybe a worse offense, yes, but I just don't have to worry so much about Montgomery hoarding away that volume. It's frustrating, okay? But regardless, they got a decent matchup versus Chicago. Kyron Williams, only 13.9 points. I'd like to see a little bit more out of him. We'll see this week. Again, Blake Corum, again, kept that bay. We're seeing the distribution here. It's a majority Kyron Williams when you look at fantasy points here, 13.9 compared to Blake Corum's 2.6. So that we see that Kyron's still the alpha. That's why they paid him, okay? Alvin Kamara, 13.7 points. Keandre Miller just not getting involved. Christian McCaffrey having a good week, 23.3 points. Again, these are all guys with good matchups. Kamara, Kyron, Montgomery, gives all these guys relatively favorable matchups versus position. I mean, San Fran versus the Saints, Christian McCaffrey should theoretically run wild, okay? Javonte Williams has a decent matchup versus the Giants this week. Now, Javonte Williams, is he going to be the real deal? Is that volume going to continue to go to Javonte Williams? Something to monitor week 2. And that's what I talked about at the beginning of the show. This is the week where the men are separated from the boys. This is a big week for these guys, okay? Jaden Blue, I'm not sure if his injury status should be, maybe he's probably good to go. So are they going to integrate him more? Something to monitor. Chuba Hubbard, 17.9 points. Decent matchup this week, not against Arizona. Breece Hall getting involved last week, 19.5 points. I believe it is a contract year, but I did notice Braylon Allen around that goal line. So that's something to be aware of, okay? Now, are they going to use Braylon Allen more? Is it going to be a Charbonnet Walker thing? I don't know. Possibly, but Braylon Allen could be moving up towards a flex spot possibly in the next couple weeks if he continues to get that goal line work. Very frustrating if you are a Breece Hall owner, okay? Other guys, good matchups. J.K. Dobbins. Now, another situation I was watching here where I'm getting frustrated again. We know that J.K. Dobbins is not that good, but he was getting the majority here, 14.8 points. R.J. Harvey, only 7.9. But you saw this kind of reminiscent of, if you remember when David Montgomery and Gibbs were going, and then David Montgomery kind of trucked through a couple yards, and every time Gibbs touched the ball, he exploded out for a big run. Well, Harvey did that last week. He exploded out for a massive run, and yet they continue to put out J.K. Dobbins. It's beyond frustrating at this point when you see talent being hindered by other guys that had the opportunity and just sucked for years, whether it be injury or lack of luster, average playability. That's what's happening here is the suppression of the talent. And another good example of this is Kyron Williams with Cam Akers years ago, and he was being suppressed. Like, as soon as Cam Akers got hurt, Kyron became a top fantasy back. And this is exactly what could happen with JK or with RJ Harvey, with JK Dobbins getting the hell out of there, right? So that's my thoughts on it. Hopefully we see more Harvey moving forward. I guess talent will rise to the top. Jacobs, high draft capital guy, only 14 points last week, mid-range matchup. Tyrone Tracy looking terrible. Like, again, he was a 5th round pick. Like, it's not exciting. He's on the Giants. If Saquon didn't thrive on the Giants, I don't know if Tyrone Tracy is. That's why I kind of avoided him. Also, Tootin, you might want to consider, if you haven't got him off the waiver wire, there could be an opportunity there. Now, Etienne's numbers were inflated. He had that big run. Is that going to continue this week? I definitely see him being suppressed, but kind of a mid-range matchup. But Tootin getting more involved with Bigsby being shipped off, okay, to the Eagles. All right, let's go tougher matchups. Pacheco versus Philly. Now, Philly gave up, I think, quite a few points last week against the run, but they are a good defense. Maybe it was one bad week. Look for them to kind of neutralize Pacheco yet again, who was held to 4.8 fantasy points last week. Saquon Barkley against KC's rush defense. It is a tough rush defense. They are a good rush defense. So this absolutely makes sense that Saquon Barkley has the second hardest matchup versus position, was kept at bay at 18 points. Shipley's banged up. And they brought in, Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby obviously going to need some time to learn the playbook, but maybe getting more integrated there, okay? Ashton Genty, tougher matchup versus Chargers rush defense. So this guy, they're throwing him in there against some tough matchups. Only 12 points. We need to see more out of Genty for sure, okay? But as you can see here, Mostert didn't do anything. Zamir White was getting involved a little bit, but just didn't do anything, okay? I was really annoyed seeing Zamir White out on a couple plays last week, all right? Dylan Sampson at Cleveland. Again, Quinshawn Judkins kind of figuring out his situation there, but tough matchup versus position versus Baltimore, who regardless if you're starting him or not. I know a lot of people picked up Sampson off waiver, but you got to be careful there. It is a tougher matchup, but if you got him, I mean, he's a good flex play, okay? Could be some upside. Bucky Irving, tougher matchup here, as you can see, versus Houston, but you got to start. You got to start. If you guys got these guys, you got to start them. Bucky only 14 points last week. Jan, obviously, got to start him. 8th hardest matchup versus position regardless. Zach Charbonnet, I think definitely worth a start, but tough matchup versus Pittsburgh here. 10th hardest versus position. Derrick Henry, got to start him, obviously, but having a big 33-point game last week, okay? Taylor, 12th hardest versus position. Again, these are some mid-range matchup. Pollard getting some volume, but only 8.9 points. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think there was an interesting stat with Merritt. I don't have it in front of me, but he was like the first rookie to have, I don't know what it was, 82 rushing yards and like a touchdown or something. His stats in his first game as a 7th round pick were like the highest of all time or something, which is pretty remarkable. I don't know the exact stat. I don't have it in front of me, but good for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt there. Amazing stuff. The guy that was on my show. Love the kid. Very good heart. He plays with all his heart. So I'm excited. All right. So that's the running back. Let's rip through wide receiver. Again, wide receiver, very interesting though, isn't it? Like when you look at wide receiver, a lot of those top tier guys I told you to fade just didn't do well. Like, I don't know what to tell you. A.J. Brown, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Puka did well, so I got to eat those words. But, it's just really crazy that when I scream in every single episode, I go, you could wait on wide receiver. There's a ton of value at wide receiver. Emeka Egbuka, draft Emeka Egbuka. Look at the scenario. Like, look at the position. Look at who's throwing the ball, how much volume they're throwing the ball. Look at the talent around. Oh, there's an opportunity there, right? Yet people will continue to draft players that are in like major wide receiver committees. It's absolutely crazy. So let's take a look at some wide receivers, optimal starts and sits at this particular position. Starting off with the great, let's go with the tough matchups here. Puka Nacua, tough matchup versus position versus Tennessee on paper, but I still think he does well this week. Again, this is based on the algorithms factoring in the first week and also what the team did last year. So it's still trying to figure it out. It might take 2 weeks for this to really kind of hone in, okay? Amon-Ra St. Brown, only 8.5 points. I talked about this target dilution in Detroit. Be careful there. And again, not a good week last week. Tesla, Williams, and Amon-Ra all getting integrated. This is why I was not really excited about Amon-Ra round 1. Major target dilution. And of course, Laporta taking a step up. Now, Keyshawn Boutte, all right? Tougher matchup versus position versus Miami. The divisional matchups are always tough, but 19.3 fantasy points. I think that's going to continue in regards to volume distribution because, again, they don't really have anybody there that's going to step up, and this guy looks like he's Drake Bay's top target, all right? Let's go here. Debo Samuel coming off a monster week. Tougher matchup. I'm telling you, man, Green Bay is going to be tough. They're going to play tough. Hopefully, again, if I got him off waiver, I put in a bid for them, I may start him against Washington, but I got to take a look at my other matchup as well because I do have Pittsburgh as well. So we'll see. We'll see if I have if I got Green Bay and what's going to happen there. But, I think they're going to give these guys a hard time. McLaurin, only 4.7 points last week. That's not good. Not good. All right. Not good at all. All right, we got Michael Pittman at 20 points, and then that was touchdown dependent, so we'll see if that continues this week. I do believe that Tyler Warren is the man. And then you look at Marquise Brown, right? A lot of people picked him up off waiver wire. I still think he's going to get a lot of volume with Xavier Worthy being out, Rashee Rice being out, so I would consider still starting him regardless. Again, these are tougher matchups. Now, Keon Coleman versus the Jets, on paper, tougher matchup, but you're not sitting Keon Coleman. He proved he's the one. When clutch time came through, Keon Coleman pulled through. All right. So there you go. Ahead of Khalil Shakir for sure. All right. Keep going here. Olave, what do you have? 12.4 points. Rashid Shaheed, 9.3. I don't care for these guys. Tougher matchup. Tet McMillan, a rookie that was drafted ahead of Emeka Egbuka, ahead of everybody else, was a 5th round pick across the board in the drafts. I don't know. For some reason, they just thought that this guy is the number one rookie. No reason. No, just plug him in there in the ADP. Only 11 points last week. Okay. I mean, maybe, right? But Bryce Young's really got to step up. Bryce Young is just not that good. When people realize, I don't know. Brian Thomas Jr., only 9 points. Travis Hunter, 9.3, but it was a bad game overall. 10th hardest matchup versus position this week, Cincinnati, okay? Quentin Johnson. So a lot of people are asking me. Now, this is his toughest versus matchup. 11th hardest versus position, just so you have context. Quentin Johnson, Chargers, had a big week, 24.9 points. Keenan Allen, 19.8. And Ladd McConkey. If you were to look at this right now, you would think that Quentin Johnson is the wide receiver one. I don't know what's going to happen. I look at this, I don't know, right? I drafted Trey Harrison a lot. I got him like in the 10th round, so he's just sitting on my bench. I don't care. So there's 2 players I've been wrong on so far, like really wrong on, is Caleb Johnson and Trey Harris. And the reason that happened, the reason I was wrong on the 2 guys I was wrong about, Caleb Johnson should easily be. We saw how bad Warren was last week, right? I guess Caleb Johnson is that bad. Like, he was a battle-tested workhorse out of college. He should be the starter, 3 down, not Kenneth Gainwell, right? That's number 1, because these are my early drafts, by the way. My early drafts, I was getting him. And I drafted a lot of Trey Harris because he was like a 2nd-round pick, and there was no Keenan Allen the time I drafted him. So, and those are my 2 ones I'm not right on. So it is what it is. I take ownership. But when I look at this scenario, it's really messy. I would rather be sitting in a position where I drafted Trey Harris later, paid really nothing to get him, instead of spending a 2nd-round pick with Ladd McConkey, who's in this situation here with these 3 stooges. Like, it's crazy, man. Like, I don't even know. It's the 3 stooges here. You got Larry, Curly, and Mo. Ladd, Keaton, and Johnson. It's I don't know, man. It's messy. And I think this is where the NFL is kind of messing with you because there's no true one. So again, I think Ladd is going to have a big week, maybe, right? And then it's going to be Quentin, and then it's going to be Keenan. Who knows? Okay. All right. Again, similar again with the Packers here. Like, who's the one? Jaden Reed, 13.5. Matthew Golden was drafted with early high draft capital. Supposed to be the one, right? A lot of people drafted Matthew Golden. I'm like, don't do it. Like, it's going to be 1 week on, 1 week off. Disaster here. Absolute disaster with the Packers wide receiver core. Nobody knows it. I think Jaden Reed's banged up. Looks like Golden has a little banged up. Check the injury designation, all right? Tyreek Hill, only 8 points. There's talk about him requesting a trade. Like, why should he get a trade? Why? If I'm on a team that I don't like, I get to just pick a team that's going to win the Super Bowl. Why would he get any preferential treatment, right? Like, why should, if any player, right? You're on a bad team. You're just going to leave the team just because you don't like the team. Like, that's not fair. That's not a team player, right? But then again, what does Tyreek Hill know about being on the right team when he's out there having like multiple babies with different mamas? He's not even staying to his wife, right? So there's no integrity there as a person, as a player. I don't get it, man. I don't get it at all. So anyways, I'm glad I didn't draft him. I don't like players with character issues, clearly. All right, that's my opinion. You guys can take it how it is. All right, Jackson Smith, great game. I think that's going to continue here, 23.4 points. And as you can see here, guys, these are all mid-range matches. I go through every player, right? So those are tough matchups, couple optimal players here. Drake London, great matchup. As you can see, Zay Flowers, great matchup coming off a 13.1 week. Good stuff. Jamar Chase now actually has a great matchup, right? Versus Jacksonville. So he's got to do something this week, all right? There's no excuse for him and Higgins. Combined 10, 11 points between the two of them, unacceptable, right? And then you got Jerry Jeudy, good matchup. Cedric Tillman, good matchup, coming off that touchdown week 1. Good matchup. This is really good, guys. This is really good for guys that are, either having good weeks or bad weeks. Either they got to bounce back, Jamar Chase, right? Or they got to continue on with their trend. Malik Neighbors, 12.1 points. That offense looks a little suspect, but great matchup versus Dallas. Ricky Pearsall, great position now. He's going to potentially do better. 17.8 points. Now with Kittle gone, good situation here and a good matchup for Pearsall. Pearsall is a sure start this week. Mike Evans and Mika coming off a great week. Great start yet again. 23.6 points, multiple touchdowns, game-winning touchdown, amazing stuff. Emeka, Marvin Harrison coming alive here, 18.1 points. Great Marvin Harrison. Good matchup versus Carolina. Awesome stuff. Nico Collins, disappointing, 5.5 points. And I talked about this on my show that, it's going to be a tough year for Houston. They got a bad O-line. I don't even know if I believe in CJ Stroud anymore. Very, very suspect, okay? And Calvin Ridley's got to step up in a decent matchup here. 6.7 points for wide receiver 1. But again, Cam Ward probably getting his first game jitters out. He's a competitive guy. I look for Cam Ward to bounce back. All right. Now we're going to move on to the tight ends here, the tight end position. And I talk about this. I'm going to sound like a broken record. If you got 16 rounds, start Tyler Warren. That's all I got to say. But here's a couple good favorable matchups here. Brenton Strange, good matchup. Tyler Conklin, good matchup from the Chargers here versus Vegas. But is he going to get the volume? We don't really know. Evan Ingram, only 5.1 points. Bo Nix better start picking it up here. Good matchup versus Indy for position at the tight end. Gunnar Helm and Chigo Gongwa, 4.9 points last week. Again, Tennessee's got to get it together here. Trey McBride, a high draft capital tight end, 12.1 points last week. Against Carolina, good matchup this week. Good matchup. Fire him up. Noah Fant is interesting here. Cincinnati brought him recently. 12.6 points, having himself a good game right out of the gate. That's really good. Is that going to continue? This is a guy where it's like, is he going to be a 1 week waiver wire wonder? You pick him up. He had a good, decent week. Is that going to continue? Something to monitor, okay? Elijah Arroyo, a guy that I got on my bench, hoping for a breakout, just didn't do anything last week, but does have a good matchup for his position against Pittsburgh. Harold Fannin, a lot of people ask about this guy. Listen, when you have rookies, you got upside, right? And he had a good game, right? 13.6 points. Is that going to continue? Depends on what the quarterbacks want to do and what the coaching want to do. But there's talent here. There's more upside with DeJoiku. We're going to see how that unfolds. Sam Laporta, I told you he's going to get an uptick in production this year. Is that going to continue? 13.9 points. Something to see. Good matchup. All good matchup. Hunter Henry, good matchup. Coming off a 10.6 week. And yeah, these are your good matchup. Tucker Kraft, only 9.9 points. I know a lot of people are high on Tucker Kraft. Okay, and Mark Andrews, mid-range matchup. Brock Bowers, tough matchup versus position versus Chargers. Jatavian Sanders, Carolina versus Arizona. I don't think anyone's starting Sanders. Travis Kelce, tough matchup versus position here. 12.7 points last week because he did have that touchdown. Higbee, Ferguson, really just tough matchup. Didn't do anything last week. Jake Ferguson, tough matchup. 6th hardest versus position. As you can see, guys, take a look here. Kincaid, tough matchup versus position, but could be a good start, right? Because they don't have anybody else other than Keon Coleman. I think he's going to get an uptick this year. Have a decent year this year. Kyle Pitts, 12.9 points last week in a contract year, 9th hardest versus position. And Tyler Warren has a tougher matchup versus position on paper. He's playing Denver, 10th hardest versus position, but you got to start Tyler Warren. All right, let's go through some defenses here. Defense. All right. Now, if you got to stream one, Arizona Cardinals, man, versus Carolina. Right out of the bat, I'm all over this pick this week. I checked my waiver wire in some competitive leagues. Arizona was not to be found. A lot of people are aware that they have an easy schedule this year, especially the first 3 or 4 games. I think they got a good matchups, including this one against Carolina. Got to start them. Patriots versus Miami. We saw what Miami did last week. Patriots looking like a good defense this week. Rams versus Tennessee. Again, all of this algorithm is really doing well, picking up kind of what happened last week with Tennessee, Miami, and Carolina. So you got to look at the defenses that are playing them this week, right? It's just common sense. Even Buccaneers, this is great. Houston didn't do that well. Check it out. 4th easiest matchup for position. So if you're looking to stream a defense, Rams, Patriots, Cardinals, Bucks, great. Okay, some other ones, Falcons, Dolphins, Bears, maybe versus Detroit, Colts versus Denver. See, like, again, not the greatest matchups. They didn't do the greatest last week, right? They're factoring in that Colts did okay last week. Denver didn't, so it factors in it's a good matchup, right? Steelers versus Seattle, Cowboys versus Giants, all good match. All this is making sense. Tougher matchups versus position. Jets versus Buffalo. Do not start the Jets versus Buffalo. We saw what Allen did last week. Makes a lot of sense. Indy versus Denver. Denver, this is a good, interesting one because Denver is a good defense. But remember, right? Daniel Jones had a good week last week. Tyler Warren's good. So maybe it's factoring. I think the algorithm's kind of picking up strictly based on 1 week. I still think Denver is a good defense. Indy could light them up, right? Commanders here, you don't want to play them against Green Bay. Again, these are just some of the tougher matchups. So what I recommend, again, the Packers against Washington. Again, you can see Washington's a decent offense. Packers, not the greatest matchup, but they are a good defense. So it's up to you to kind of make like an executive decision. Like, this is the defense I drafted. Like, I got Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a good defense on paper. Am I going to start them? I got to take a look. Who else do I got? Maybe I want to stream somebody else. Some of those ones I mentioned that have good matchups, totally up to you, okay? That's it. That's all I got for you. Starts and sits week 2 already. If you have any questions, drop them below. But I want to keep the content rolling for you guys. So turn on the bell and join the Patreon if you want direct access. Patreon.com/FF Counselor. Go join the Frontlines. And if you're a general level, you're guaranteed the question to be answered. I get to all of them. And again, chubbyshorts.com/lion mode. Go grab your amazing swag. Lion mode will save you $10 at chubbys.com. $10 off your order. Go order right now. All right. Subscribe, thumbs up. Fantasy football week 2 starts and sits. There you have it. Everything complete in one place. Drop your questions below. Leave a thumbs up on your way out and have yourself an outstanding day. Talk soon.